It's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Tensions heighten in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Congress is grappling with fundamentals and RFK Jr. on pharmaceutical advertising on television. Next on the AM Update. President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday formally lowered the threshold for Russia's use of its nuclear weapons, a move that follows U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to let Ukraine strike targets inside Russian territory with American-supplied longer-range missiles. The new doctrine allows for a potential nuclear response by Moscow to even a conventional attack on Russia by any nation that is supported by a nuclear power. Russia's defense ministry said Ukraine fired 6 U.S.-made missiles early Tuesday at military facilities in Russia's Bryansk region that borders Ukraine, adding that air defenses shot down 5 of them and damaged 1 more. Ukraine's military claimed the strike hit a Russian ammunition depot, while the doctrine envisions a possible nuclear response by Russia to such a conventional strike. It is formulated broadly to avoid a firm commitment to use nuclear weapons and keep Putin's options open. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized that the Ukrainian strike in Bryansk marked an escalation and urged the U.S. and other Western allies to study the modernized nuclear doctrine. Meanwhile, in Washington, Republican legislators are struggling to grapple with what exactly a woman is. Here's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson being asked about a newly elected Democrat, a man who feels like he's a woman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this.
What a cowardly response from Mike Johnson there. Fortunately, later on in the day, he seemed to get the memo.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman.
Better. Well done, Mike Johnson. He obviously realized how much he had kind of screwed the pooch with his original answer, saying, I'm not going to get into this silly debate. It's not a silly debate. You were asked about it by a member of the media. You can just say, no, this man is not going to use the woman's bathroom on Capitol Hill. How bad is it when Nancy Mace has bigger balls than Mike Johnson, at least originally? Here she is yesterday talking about her measure that would ban dudes from using women's bathrooms at the U.S. Capitol.
So if that being a feminist makes me an extremist, I'm totally here for it.
Is this effort in response to Congresswoman McBride's coming to Congress?
Yes, and absolutely, and then some. I'm not going to stand for a man, if someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way.
See, Speaker Johnson, that's how it's done. So much easier. Just saying hell no is a lot easier than, well, my God commands me to have respect for everybody. No, it's a flat out no. Well done, Nancy Mace, of all people. Meanwhile, in the Senate, Senator Lindsey Graham was asked during a press gaggle yesterday whether he thinks Matt Gaetz should continue on with his confirmation process for Attorney General.
Nobody should be disqualified because of a media report.
It's more than it's an investigation.
Investigated by the department. He wants to leave.
Bipartisan ethics investigation.
And they didn't proceed forward.
Man, I really dislike Lindsey Graham. I mean, he is one of the worst perennial senators in the Republican conference. But he's absolutely right there. I think the number of people, even on the right, who continue to clutch pearls over Matt Gaetz, pretend as if Brett Kavanaugh, Michael Avenatti, those people never happened. Like the left has never just made stuff up. Now, it could be true what they're saying about Matt Gaetz and what he allegedly did or did not do with underage women. It could be true, but the way we could actually get to the truth and get to the fact of the matter is by having a confirmation process. Everybody can bring their evidence out in the open, and the American people and the senators can decide for themselves. More cabinet and sub-cabinet level appointments yesterday. Trump nominated Dr. Mehmet Oz to lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Mehmet Oz, former television personality, a Senate candidate. He lost his bid for senator from Pennsylvania to one John Fetterman. Just last night, Trump announced Linda McMahon. She's the wife of WWE founder Vince McMahon. She's going to be heading up the Department of Education. Linda McMahon, former administrator for the Small Business Administration in the first Trump White House. She and her husband have been staunch allies of Donald Trump. Those last two picks definitely in the meh category as far as I'm concerned. The next pick, maybe not so much, because also yesterday, Trump nominated Howard Lutnick, chair and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, for his Secretary of Commerce. Who is Howard Lutnick? Well, he's a fierce proponent of Donald Trump's tariffs. Here he is on CNBC recently explaining why tariffs actually work.
And of course, it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound, Andrew?
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
He gets what I've always said about tariffs. They're a great idea as long as you use them punitively, as a bargaining chip. They're not a great idea if you just smack a 10%, 25% tariff on things that are already going to be imported into the United States, because then it really does just become like a tax that the consumer then has to bear. That's where the left was correct, but they're not correct in their assessment of how Donald Trump, I think, intends to use tariffs. He intends to use them punitively. 100% tariff on imports coming into the largest economy on the face of the planet. Yeah. You're not going to be able to sell anything. You're not going to have de facto access to this market. Yeah, we'll let you have access to the market, but consumers are going to have to pay 200% of what they usually would have to pay. You're probably not going to sell much of anything, but you know what? If you want to come to the negotiating table and actually knock down some of your tariffs on our exports, yeah, we'll be your huckleberry. See, I think Howard Lutnick, Trump's pick to be Commerce Secretary, I think he gets that, at least on some level. The Department of Justice will recommend to a federal judge that Google sell its Chrome browser business as part of its ongoing search monopoly case. This comes months after a judge ruled that Google, owned by Alphabet, violated antitrust laws by illegally maintaining a monopoly in search. By ensuring its own search engine is the default choice on devices, Google is denying rival search engines the opportunity to compete and therefore denying people the ability to experience alternatives. Since that time, the tech industry has speculated how Google will address the ruling and whether it would involve breaking up the company. The sale of Chrome or Google's Android business have been part of that speculation. The recommendation from the DOJ to federal judge Amit Mehta, according to the report from Bloomberg, would be one step that Google will take. The DOJ is also reportedly seeking changes related to the company's AI and Android businesses. The request would include new data licensing requirements for Google. Color me skeptical. I'm not really sure how busting up a monopoly on a search engine is helped or mitigated by selling a browser, which is not the same thing as a search engine, but apparently the DOJ thinks that's on the table. And finally, RFK Jr. says we need to start thinking about banning pharmaceutical advertising on television. Here is first a clip from RFK Jr. in a documentary a few years ago about just why pharmaceutical advertising happens so much on the nightly news, followed by a clip of Callie Means' appearance on the Tucker Carlson show talking about much the same things. Why is it that the news media seems so invested, so hell-bent on making sure pharmaceutical companies can advertise on the air? Here's RFK Jr. followed by Callie Means.
Network president told me that if one of his talk shows allowed me on the air, that he would fire the host. This person is a friend of mine. And I would have to fire the host because this is where our advertisers are. And if he lost an advertiser, it's a major catastrophe for the network. The press has effectively been neutralized. If, all you have to do is sit down and watch the 6 o'clock news on TV and see how many of those stories are bracketed by pharmaceutical ads. I was told by a network executive that during non-election years, during some months during non-election years, up to 70% of his news division revenues are coming from pharma.
But you're saying that pharma buys TV spots not to convince people to ask for specific drugs from their physicians, but to subvert the news business?
This is an open secret working for pharma.
Well, I never even thought of that.
This is an open secret. The kind of silly ads you see between the news breaks, the points of that is not, it's marginally to impact the customer, but the pharma's already got that. They've already bought off the doctors. They're good on that. No, this is an open secret. The news ad spending from pharma is a public relation lobbying tactic, essentially, to buy off the news. The news is they're not investigating pharma.
I've noticed.
The news has become basically a referee that you were a terrible anti-science Luddite for asking why, the shots that we require our kids to get that fundamentally by their own advertising change the immune system of that child for life, why it's gone from 20 to 70. To even ask that question, the news referees that and calls you anti-science when the two largest vaccine makers in the country are literally criminal enterprises. GlaxoSmithKline and Merck, in the past 5 years, has settled two of the largest criminal penalties in American corporate history for bribing doctors and creating misleading research, who are the two largest vaccine makers. So you literally have the media playing referee that you can't even ask a question. Parent is actually...
If you have a vaccine injury, and many people have, including some I know very well, even a profound vaccine injury, you're not allowed to complain about it.
No, you're anti-science.
Even if it can be shown, this is a vaccine injury. The media plays referee because they're funded. But so in all levels, right? Wow. On all levels. And I'm very dark, Callie means.
Well, I think it's hopefully empowering. I think this is why we have an opportunity here, Tucker. Like Ozempic, this is not some new, it's kind of this funny thing, it's kind of vain, I can lose weight. This is the reason the stocks are going up is because this is going to be a lot of government money. This is going to be the highest funded drug from the U.S. taxpayer in history. And we've got a society, when are we going to say, let's go another direction? Why are we trusting pharma now when they've been completely acting to garner no trust?
Again, that is RFK Jr. on a documentary a few years ago, followed by a clip of Big Pharma whistleblower and a new way of medicine champion, Callie Means, on the Tucker Carlson podcast, discussing the symbiotic relationship between Big Pharma advertisements on national television and national television networks. It's a very symbiotic relationship. You can't have one. Essentially, if I could boil down the last 3 minutes for you, essentially what's being communicated there, you can't have one without the other. You can't have the news media, the 6 o'clock news, without pharma advertisements. And Big Pharma can't have their own business without the 6 o'clock news not investigating anything into their practices or lack thereof. I know we like to say, you can't ban pharma commercials on the television. Well, I know it's not 1-to-1, but didn't we force big tobacco companies didn't we compel them to speech, putting the black box warnings on cigarettes? That's compelled speech. Seems to me there's a conflict of interest that was very, very apparent. That was just spelled out there in the last 3 minutes. What do you think? Let me know at Real AM Update on X. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.